All right. We got a dandy for you today. We got my man Kai Roberts over here, who I feel like I've known forever. And it's so funny because me and Kai actually met a little over a month ago at the Active Minds conference down in DC. And Kai is a really special guy. So I'm going to give a little bit of introduction because I think it's cool just being able to let you know kind of how we met. So I was literally, so we were at the Active Minds conference, and there was a panel about how to share your story publicly. And I had heard of Kai before when I went to the conference. So I'm like looking up the people who are there, and I was like, yo, this guy is really interesting. He tells the story through music. He's got a lot of passion. He's got a real authentic smile. This guy looks like the man. So I get there, and you're just killing it up there on the podium, just really being so authentic, telling people about how you got involved, talking about your story, telling people about some of the amazing journeys that you went on this year. Specifically, you were talking about your experience in Baltimore, which hit home because I actually had a bunch of friends that went to Loyola, Maryland, and I was like, yo, that's amazing. and so basically, I approached Kai after this workshop, and we're just sitting there, and I'm like, dude, like, I gotta get you to tell your story, man. Like you have such a powerful point of view, and the way that you speak to the world is so authentic, and the way that you express your story is so authentic and so genuine. And I think sometimes the world loses that, right? You go to these conferences and sometimes people are super, I gotta be buttoned up, I gotta be this, I gotta be that. And you're there just making people feel comfortable. And that's what attracted me to you from the start. I was like, yo, this is the guy I want to talk to. This is the guy that could change the lives of so many people. So
appreciate it, man.
Well, of course. And on that note, instead of me, introducing you, I'm gonna give you an opportunity to tell the JCK Foundation community who you are, a little bit about yourself, and we'll go from there. So the stage is yours.
Oh, that's what's up. I appreciate you for having me, man.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, like how John was saying, my name is Kai Roberts. I currently serve as an assistant director for pre-college enrollment at Carnegie Mellon University. But outside of that, I'm a producer, recording artist, and mental health speaker for an organization called Active Minds. Really, I'm doing this work for like about 5 years now. Over this next 30 minutes or so, I just want to tell you a little bit about myself, the mental health obstacles that I experienced in college, how I overcame them, and just how I got to the point where I am now. I know it's a very difficult time right now, but hopefully what I say can help offer some perspective as to how I'm handling my emotions, and perhaps give some perspective as to how you should, things you could do to handle your emotions as well. So when I got to college, I didn't really know what to expect. Me and my friends, we thought that we were going to go to a big party or something like that. So we would always talk, we would always talk to high school about, all the parties, the girls we're going to talk to, drinking, things like that. But when I got there, I learned that it was a lot different. The work was rigorous. Classes were really rigorous. They would move extra quickly. Socially, it was fun. College is a great experience, as you all might know. But what I really wasn't prepared for were the challenges that I was going to experience there, and the emotions that would come from them. During my sophomore year, I started dealing with an anxiety disorder, due to many things, but primarily like the stresses, daily stresses of life, my lack of sleep. I wasn't treating my body right, wasn't eating right, and I also dealt with deep-rooted insecurities related to fitting in, relationships, and sex, or my lack thereof. So after the spring of my sophomore year, I started dealing with had my first panic attack. So I was with my friends. We were actually coming from a show, because I was in this hip hop group during college. We were coming from a show, and we were staying in DC, like the DMV area. And one of the members of the show, her family was down there. They let us stay at like their property. I guess her parents weren't there, and we were actually smoking weed in the house. I wasn't a heavy smoker or anything like that, but it was just something I was trying because I was with my friends, and I was smoking this weed. I was high. and really just the lack of control I had over my body, really propelled me into a panic attack. So had this panic attack. And Jordan, I'm allowed to talk about weed, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I just want to make sure I didn't say anything
Absolutely,
wrong.
man. Absolutely. I'm glad that you shared that too, because that's an experience that a lot of us have dealt with, especially with panicking because of that. So
I hear you. Yeah, I mean, but I had my first panic attack. I didn't know what it was. Matter of fact, I didn't know what any of this stuff was. I didn't know what mental health was. It wasn't really a part of my education growing up. I didn't know what anxiety was. But I had this first panic attack, and I remember, feeling like my throat was closing up on me, getting really panicked. I'm looking in the mirror, trying to make sure my, trying to make sure my throat isn't closing up on me. And I really didn't know what was happening. I thought I was going to have a heart attack, which is funny because many people that have panic attacks compare it to a heart attack. So that's something I learned on the line, but it's interesting. Thankfully, one of my friends, his mom dealt with panic attacks. So he told me to get in the cold shower. He said, get in the cold shower, it'll calm you down. So I did what he said, even though I was somewhat uncomfortable with it, got in the cold shower, and I calmed down. And I mean, the panic attack was over. But after that, I had 2 other panic attacks that night because I kept panicking about panicking.
yeah.
And this really became my cycle as I progressed into the summer. So after that day, I became a very, very anxious person. I experienced, all the symptoms of anxiety. So like racing thoughts, heart palpitations, inability to really, concentrate, inability to rest yourself or to go to sleep. My stomach was tight, for the whole summer. And I didn't help it just because I was working 2 jobs that summer as well. So I was just stressed in general.
So
But I experienced,
jeez.
It was a lot. It was like, in retrospect, I know that I wasn't treating myself right. But at that time, I was just trying to put a lot of things on my plate, just, just trying to make it to the next level. I mean, trying to, get some money for college, find internships and things like that. But I dealt with these emotions the whole rest of the summer. And my anxiety really reached a new level when I went back to school, which is the fall of my junior year. And really, as soon as I got back to school, I knew that, this probably wasn't sustainable. My anxiety really reached a new level with just the stresses of college, because college moves extra quickly. A lot of times I couldn't concentrate in classes. I would cry a lot. I was just very emotional in general. I would cry at night, just because I couldn't calm my body enough to go to sleep. So I wasn't getting a lot of rest. It really kind of just added to the problem, essentially. Thankfully I had someone that was in my life, a gentleman named Tom Rainey, who I was employed by because I was an RA during this time. And he was the first person to really communicate to me that I believe you may be dealing with anxiety, like a mental health related ailment, So like he encouraged me to go to CAPS, Counseling and Psychological Services, on Carnegie Mellon's campus. And, and I mean, that was helpful, but so at the time, my university had limited amount of therapy sessions. So that was another point making me very anxious, because I'll always think like, what if I'm not, fixed, by the end of this 12 session or however many sessions it was stint. So that's one thing that made me nervous, even while going to therapy. Another thing is that, therapy was only 50 minutes, and, I had to deal with my thoughts, for the whole rest of the day outside of that.
You can't get everything out there in 15 minutes either. That's impossible. That is. Oh.
Yeah. So I mean, it's. Yeah. I just want to make sure that I wanted to say 50 minutes, not 15.
Oh, 15. I think you said 15.
No, not 15.
Well,
Yeah,
my bad.
it was 50.
I'm concerned that 50 is good. 15 is like, wait, what? You can't say everything in 15
Yeah,
minutes.
that's just the introduction.
Oh, my bad. So 15 minutes. 15.
Yeah, 50. But yeah, I mean, so my life was really unbearable outside of those 50 minutes, just because, you know, experiencing these new emotions. At one of my therapy sessions, where when I was first getting my session started, I was really spooked by the prospect of or just even the word suicide. Um, John, I don't want to trigger anyone because can I still talk about
Oh,
suicide?
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I was gonna say, even to help you at that point, it's like that was the same thing I used to go through, right? I used to
I
get
hear
so
you.
nervous about saying the word suicide because I thought, oh my God, what if this triggers? What if this that? But the thing,
Yeah.
I started learning that actually so many more people go through that fear of even the word suicide, and it allows
Yeah.
us to almost embrace it and say, okay, you know, just because we say it doesn't mean we're gonna trigger it. We're actually gonna help people by bringing that term to it. So, man,
Yeah.
you are golden right now. You're killing it.
But okay. I appreciate
Of course.
it. Appreciate it, man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so I got spooked by the word, and you know, I dealt with anxiety, and I guess I was formally diagnosed with anxiety, so generalized anxiety, but I dealt with a lot of symptoms of OCD. So the obsessive thoughts, I mean the intrusive thoughts. So I dealt with with the word suicide. Once I became afraid of that word, I became afraid of everything that had to do with suicide. Like I would, the word would pop into my head, and I would, you know, really kind of physically become afraid of it. Like just if you just imagine hamburgers that pop into your head and you get nervous about it. You know, that's the same way that the word suicide will pop into my head, and I would get afraid of that. Once that fear really reinforced itself, I became afraid of everything that had to do with suicide. So I became afraid of knives. I became afraid of bridges. I became afraid of tops of buildings, windows, like the window in my dorm, for example. And these are things that I would, you know, when I would get close to or when I would interact with, I would feel that panicked feeling. I would, you know, have that, or excuse me, really either have a panic attack or just get very anxious, I'd say. Um, Another one of my intrusive thoughts were sex related, in my own sexuality related. In my mind, you know, at this point in my life, I found myself a failure, or I thought of myself as a failure because I was a virgin. I was at this point, I was in my, you know, 20 or I think 20 years old. And, you know, you know, our society tells us that, you know, we have to have sex at an early age or, you know, or there's something wrong with you. So like I really internalized this and started feeling like there was something wrong with me. Um, you know, I was just thinking why, you know, asking myself why girls don't like me, or, you know, why I can't find a girlfriend, or even when I did have a girlfriend, why I couldn't, you know, get an erection, you know, when I would try to have sex. It was the anxiety, but I attributed that um, to just my um, image as a man, or just like my identity as a man, rather. Um, so I, you know, became upset. Will receive intrusive thoughts about my sexuality. You know, just, you know, the thought of like, if I'm not successful sexually as a, you know, with a woman, you know, what if I'm gay, or what if I'm not attracted to a woman? What if I'm attracted to a man? And you know, it's really interesting, like talking about OCD and like intrusive thoughts, because like when you have these kind of sex related intrusive thoughts, you know, you become fearful in yourself because and fearful to tell people about them, just because you don't want to be perceived as homophobic.
Yep.
I'm not homophobic. I don't consider myself to be. I've always had, you know, friends from a bunch of different backgrounds. You know, I've always respected that. You know, love is love. But you know, when anxiety wraps itself up in your own identity, and tries to persuade you that you are something that you've when you aren't when you when you are something that you know that you are not, that's what kind of propelled me into panic about that. So my intrusive thoughts were, in the same way of me talking about me becoming fearful about suicide, it was the same thing with sex and my sexuality. So once my anxiety really took this and ran with it, I would receive images of pornographic images of men relating with other men in my mind. Really graphic things. Like when I took my leave of absence, like I couldn't even be around my dad, my brother, without images or really images of, popping into my head of me sexualizing them. And it's just the nature of OCD and intrusive thoughts that people really don't talk about. But it was unbearable, for sure.
So much, man. Like, I'm even thinking about this. I don't mean to interrupt, but I got to send you my love, because you sound exactly like I did when I was that age. It was crazy. Even from the first panic attack, I was in Amsterdam, and we all know what happens in Amsterdam, right? I had a similar experience, and that led to a panic attack for me. And then I started getting obsessed with suicide, so I couldn't approach a knife. I couldn't approach a window. So when you're telling me this, and then the same thing with women and the sexual thoughts. So it's like, when I'm listening to you, you're making me so happy, because I know where you were. I know exactly where you were. That's why it's so nice to have you here right now, because that is some of the hardest stuff to deal with, because it's so embarrassing and it's so hard, but we know it's not who we are and what we want, but that's those intrusive thoughts. And man, like the fact that you're saying this and you're being vulnerable, there's so many people out there listening right now that need to hear this stuff, because my God, it is some of the most painful thoughts ever. And people need to know that it does get better. It really, really does.
It does.
I had to just let you know and show you my support, man, because you're hitting me at home right here.
Yeah, John, I appreciate it, man.
Well, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it was the hardest time of my life. Once I was telling my mom some of the things, because I told her about both sets of intrusive thoughts. And my family was really worried about it. But once I told my family, some of the things I was thinking about, they, demanded I take a leave of absence. He said, basically, you're coming home. You're coming home right now. And thankfully, I went to school in my hometown. So she just picked me up. Got on a leave of absence. And I mean, just as the first statement, it was the best thing that I could have ever done. Even though I wasn't really planning for it, but I agree with you, John. I'm glad we made the move at that time. It was, really eye-opening. I initially didn't get a therapist, just out of the stigma that my parents had around mental health. I communicated that I think I should probably get a therapist to my parents, and they were really concerned that I would have something on my record, or that would hinder me some way in the future, going to a mental health a mental health professional. And this is just a stigma that surrounds mental health, especially in every community, but especially in the Black community and people of color. So this is something I had to work through. I eventually, convinced my parents, or just kind of decided to get a therapist. And it was, hands down the other best decision I could have ever made. Within this time, I received talk therapy. He taught me many techniques to calm myself, so that I can address some of the intrusive thoughts, as well as the underlying deep-rooted insecurities that might be inspiring the anxiety a little bit more. So I addressed all those things in therapy. He encouraged me to, my therapist sort of encouraged me to start treating myself better. So I started exercising, started eating better, really started doing a lot of independent research as to how I can become a healthier person. And my therapist also encouraged me to, continue making music, and that really said that I could process my emotions in a healthy way. If I, talk about my emotions in a healthy way. This creative outlet can help with my disorder. So, I continued making music, producing music and writing music. When I came back to school, which was thankfully the next semester, I started working on just the different creative ways to promote mental health awareness. This was something that I didn't know about. Wasn't raised with the understanding of. We didn't engage with the topic outside of a comedic sense, talking about mental health. But I really thought that other people should hear my story, hear a message promoting mental health awareness, and I decided to do that through music. So that's really how I got to the point I am now. I released that album. I released an album called Carnegie Cafe.
I love that.
Yeah.
Carnegie Cafe.
Yeah, Carnegie Cafe. Yeah, it was actually a restaurant on campus. So it's definitely a slight ode to Carnegie Mellon. I got a lot of love for Carnegie Mellon, but this story was really about just college in general.
Isn't it amazing too? Like when we think about because it's so funny, I can't get over the similarities in our story. Like, isn't it amazing what happens, right? When you actually finally do go to that therapist, right? And he reassures you that these thoughts that you're having are something called anxiety. You're not actually suicidal. You're just overwhelmed. You're disassociating, right? And when you feel that and you start saying, oh my God, I'm not actually, again, same thing with me. I used to be nervous. I'm not homophobic in the slightest. It's the total opposite, in fact. But I was like, oh my God, okay, so I'm not gay. I actually, this is all so much anxiety building up. And then when you get that reassurance and those techniques, it's like, holy shit, you feel like a new man. And then you're like, oh my God, then wait, I can, start being more sexual with people, with women. I can start being more confident to talk to someone. And I can start like, oh my God, look at me. All of a sudden, I can do this, right? Like, I'm back. I'm back to where I need to be. And then when you feel that like energy, man, that's like the most powerful.
I'm back.
You're back. And then you have that outlet, right? And you have music and you start saying, dang, it's just so amazing. And that's why it's like beautiful that, you never gave up. You were open, you were vulnerable. And even when the odds were against you, therapy didn't look like an option at one point, but you said, I want to do this. I want to better myself. And you went in there with an open mind and an open heart. And now look at you, man. Now you're speaking across the country. You're sharing your music across the country. And that's all because you were honest with yourself and you got the help that you deserve, man.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. It's inspirational, man. It really is. And it's just like, when I hear this, it's just like, it brings me back to my own roots. And it just makes me so happy that it's like, it's just that proof that there are so many people like me and you right now that are sitting out there that might be in the same boat that need to hear, you're going to be okay. You can get through this. You can succeed. You can be the person that you want to be. And man, like that gets me even more pumped to get more into your music, man.
So I appreciate you, bro. Yeah.
The least I could do, man. I appreciate everything you're doing.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely like, it was definitely a difficult journey. I mean, and even after that, I definitely want to communicate this, but that after that leave of absence, I still was dealing with my anxiety disorder. Like that was not there's not a cure for mental health. This is something that you have to manage for and sometimes some instances a lifetime. I mean, sometimes it gets better, to the point that you don't really think about it as a disorder anymore. But like I still get anxious, especially in this coronavirus crisis. I'm anxious a little bit, but not to the extent where I was prior to my leave of absence, just because of the tools that I learned and that I gained in therapy, of how to take care of myself emotionally, which is a lesson everyone should learn in life.
Amen.
Yeah.
Oh man, dude, that's amazing. Now, I figure, man, if you want to share some of that music with the fans out there.
But yeah, that's just some music.
Let's do it.
Yeah, like here's like it's part of my presentation. So I say like, And this is something from the Carnegie Cafe album. Was age 14, made a microphone fiend from a one-night fling. Erased the insecurity, a moment of purity, feeling low. The world was flooring me, and I acted accordingly. Claimed my free spiritness was soft, fleeces, tore me to pieces. Caught a seamstress. Now I'm better now, Coogee sweater now. Fiending gave me reason to treason, not resting on the weekend became my trademark. On point like darts, I became cardiac arrested to bars that's in my heart. The art now a part of my soul. Mama's stocking pop filters never get old. Or my dad's mics. Long nights turn to flashing lights, studio flights. Now you be rhyming on the back of a bike. You fall off in the fast lane, trying to chase the mundane. When music brought me through the pain. See, I remember when the world felt December like a antifreeze. Stresses and aggression was neglecting all my basic needs. Welfare cash, lower than the basic steez. Looking to fit in with clothes I couldn't fit in just. Love with music instrumentals to soothe the mental. One day saw my own potential. Now how you, I forget it. Well,
Dude, that is fire. You don't even need a beat, man.
huh?
You don't even need a beat. No, but you know what's so cool about all that too? Like the way you speak so confidently when you're in your zone there too, when you're inside your music, and just like even those words like the heart attack word, like the
Yeah,
things that you were just telling me, right? Like in your
yeah,
story, you piece together through your own music.
yeah. Just it's a way to stylize it, you know.
Oh my! How
Yeah.
long have you been doing that for now? Like music itself?
Well, I've been making my own music since my ninth grade year in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so now I guess it's about, man, it's about 14 years.
Damn.
Yeah,
And
but about 14 years been making my own.
how many albums did you release?
So I have it's kind of a difficult question just because I released a couple kind of smaller tapes when I was still in high school.
Yep.
And then I was with a group and we released, I want to say three projects as a group. But as far as I guess professionally, like me, just actively promoting my music, like as an individual, just two. So Carnegie Cafe and my most recent project, The Great Escape.
So what's the difference? I gotta hear this. The Great Escape. What's the inspiration? I guess, and how would you describe? I guess the difference between those two albums? Because I want to promote all your work. I want
I
people to listen
appreciate
to
it.
it because first of all, when I heard you, man, yeah, I used to freestyle like as a joke, right? And I
Mhm.
had some good moves out of that. I'd be like, I'm Johnny Tess, better than the rest. But it was horrible, horrible. But I had passion. I see you. You're sitting there just like so smooth, so confident, so much meaning. You're like a poet, dude. You know?
I
But
appreciate it, bro.
it's poetic, and it's like, yeah. So what is, I guess, the difference between the two? And if you mind, I guess diving a little bit into that and the inspiration behind
Yeah, I mean, so Carnegie Cafe, is basically the story of me dealing with the story of my college experience, right? So, there's songs in there about, the kind of unrealistic expectations that I had about the college experience.
it. Mm-hmm.
There's songs in there just talking about how I grew up, the community where I'm from, um, and then it gets into more of a mental health story. There's a few songs on there that really talk about my progression into this anxiety disorder, some of the insecurities I'm feeling that I was feeling in college. And I mean, with that project, I just really wanted to capture that moment of my life and just kind of like give it a soundtrack, but the way that I approached the project, I also wanted it to be, something that may be considered timeless. I mean, as far as the sound, like there's, um, I don't know if I succeeded at that, just because it's, to me, I guess it's starting to sound, you know, with like trap music and stuff like that, it's starting to sound a little bit out of date. Um, but I wanted it to be for all audiences. I didn't just want it to be for the hip hop heads. I wanted to create music that, say someone that likes pop or someone that likes rock, wouldn't mind listening to it, just because with that particular project, it was more about the message than the music. And I just wanted to you know, because if things don't sound like how you're used to receiving it, you know, you're usually going to push it away. Um, so I mean, I just think about that in the music sense. Like if you like country music, you know, you want something that sounds in that same lane. So I mean, not to say that I don't have a country song on the album, so I'll
Oh,
probably.
you never know. I would love to hear it, country guy.
Yeah. So I gotta apologize to the country heads out there, you know, um, but I wanted to make it kind of, you know, crossover, like mainstream sounding at least, you know. But on the other end, you have The Great Escape, which I wanted to be a kind of a universal sound, but it's more so about me kind of escaping my own cycle of perfectionism, like in my post college life. Because there's a very large gap of time in which wasn't releasing music.
Yeah.
And it's really because just, you know, it was a very difficult adjustment from college to the real world. In my life, you know, my brother dealt with cancer. You know, I had a job, you know, like I was, you know, bouncing from job to job, really trying to find my purpose. And this is all while I'm you know, with the Active Mind Speakers Bureau, you know, traveling the country, you know, telling my story to different audiences. But, you know, people don't realize that it's like, you know, I have to pay the bills as well, you know, so I had a day job, you know, and, you know, I wanted to do something that resonated with my spirit. And I was just trying to find that. But yeah, I mean, the Great Escape is really just about my post college life, and, you know, the challenges that I experienced at that time. You know, my brother dealing with cancer. You know, how not liking your 9 to 5. Just a lot of different experiences.
That's
And it's a lot more relaxed. Like the mood is a lot more kind of laid back.
That's so cool too, because I love the title too, because it tells a story. You know, it's like you're able to escape some of that, like perfectionism goes hand in hand with OCD and anxiety,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it's like when you feel that, it's like, damn, how can you get yourself out there in like a healthy way? And music is such a positive escape, especially the message that you send. It's so hopeful, right? And it's so real and so raw. So when a kid hears that, right, like a student, like, you know, a young student that's hearing that for the first time could be like, geez, like I relate to this guy. He's telling me this message, like, man, this is how I feel. I'm like, and that's what's so inspirational about you, Kai. I just think you're so authentic in the way you share your story, and how vulnerable you are, even about some of those deep, dark thoughts that I haven't even brought that up in public in a while. Cause like, I still get so nervous to talk about it. Right. And it's like, yo, when you break down that barrier, man, that's when you start becoming your true self. And what's going to stop you when you're your true self? I don't think anything can stop you.
Nothing. And I mean, it feels like I agree with you, man, and I appreciate the kind words, you know. But I just want to encourage everyone out there just to, I mean, when you're honest about you can be honest in life, like in conversation, but not be honest with yourself, you know. But when both of those things align, you feel you're able to find calm, like your inner peace. And I feel like I've found that through my journey with dealing with anxiety. Like it brought me closer to who I am as a person, just because it brought me closest to, you know, what I fear the most, or what I'm most insecure about the most. But just embracing those thoughts and working through them, it makes you more of yourself.
And that's something that stays with people forever, man. And when you feel like yourself, it's such a difference between, you know, like, and I think about it's a difference between, you know, a 20-year-old version of us. And now I'm 30 now. How old are you? Are you 26?
No, I'm 27.
27, and a 27-year-old version of yourself, right? Because
Yeah.
like you start feeling so much more confident. And man, that's so important. Like, it's easy. I think sometimes it's sometimes even easier to be honest with people in public than with your own insecurities and your own demons, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And that's such a powerful message, because when the two are in line, geez, like magic can happen, right? And then
I agree.
and then when you do go through those down periods, at least you're being honest with yourself, right? Like even before we jumped on the phone today, I was telling you, man, I had a really weird day today with my own anxiety and my own it's a beautiful day outside, but I can't really do anything with it, right? And I'm just sitting there like, dang. And I mean, I think one final thing I'd love to ask you too is any other, messages for students, whether you want to be through your music or whether you want to just tell anything else that you want to share with people about what they may be going through. And I think, like, obviously your music, and I know you're telling me that, you have an amazing, fiance and amazing friends. Like, what else have you, I guess, been doing, or any final messages that you want to share with people about keeping themselves healthy and expressing themselves during this time?
Yeah. I mean, during this time, I mean, I guess hitting on a point about like this coronavirus crisis that the world's dealing with, try your best to employ some method of self-care during this time, like whether it's going on a walk, like taking a warm bath or something like that, or playing video games. I've been playing a lot of 2K. That's helping me up.
Yeah, my buddy Eric Pascal, he's the Warriors rookie. He's from our hometown.
Yeah, I mean, but that it's been helping tremendously. But just find something that calms you, and really, like a healthy, coping mechanism. Like don't grab a bottle of, liquor, and try to cope with this moment with that, just because that's not sustainable and that's not healthy. But meditate, go on a walk, go on a run, exercise, lift, find some method of self-care that you can use during this time, especially in like coronavirus. And this applies to even like students in college. College, in my opinion, is not a healthy experience when you consider the pace at which you're forced to learn. I think it puts a lot of strain on, and this is a personal opinion just from like my story, but it puts a lot of pressure on your brain. And I don't know if there's any studies out there. It will be interesting to see, but if there's any studies that talk about the capacity of the brain to absorb information at a certain pace, or at a certain volume, like that'll be pretty interesting. But in my opinion, I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
No, I said totally. I was 100% agreed.
Yeah, I mean, that's my personal opinion. But while college is structured the way that it is, you have to find a way to take your mind off of that work, or to disconnect. And that's when I encourage people to learn meditation, just because that's really the only time that your mind is at rest, while it's meditating. Because when you think about it, if you're dreaming, in your sleep, your brain is still working, technically. So you have to meditate. You have to make your brain not do anything for it to be truly at rest. So learn meditation. Learn how to relax your body, like relaxation exercises. These are all things that you might learn in therapy, but they were like very helpful in my journey. And those are things that that you could do right now. Doesn't cost anything, and it'll make you feel a little bit better. But I guess overall, if you're dealing with a mental health disorder, you are not alone. You are not crazy. The thoughts that you're receiving are all proven to be a part of the human experience. So you're not outside of the realms of humanity when you deal with like these dark thoughts, right? Because your brain has a reason for everything. And it does things for a reason, even if it might seem misguided. So you're not alone. You're not your darkest moment. So I can't hold on to myself like the Kai that was in that leave of absence. I can't hold on to that picture of myself. I can learn from that. I can learn from what I've been through, but I'm not going to be hard on myself about what I've been through. So you're not your darkest moment. If you made mistakes in the past, you're not that moment. The weed that I smoked in the DMV, I can't hold on to that. I'm like, I sometimes my mind goes to the idea that if I wouldn't have smoked that weed, maybe I wouldn't deal with anxiety. So I can't think about that. You gotta let that go. You're not your darkest moment, and you will overcome anything that you deal with. So you are not alone. Where you're not your darkest moment, and you will overcome if you are dealing with something, for sure. And we will overcome this coronavirus crisis. We're going to get through it, y'all.
Hell yeah, man. That was amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And I mean, I can't wait to share this with the world now.
No doubt, man. Thanks for having me, John. I appreciate you.
It's our pleasure. It's our pleasure.
Thanks for the love, y'all. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you liked the video. Peace.